Can the world of martial arts achieve immortality? Martial arts cultivate souls, while immortals achieve results. Keywords of the novel. Starting from the world of martial arts with no pop-ups, starting from the world of martial arts with no pop-ups, downloading the complete text of Starting from the World of Martial Arts with No Pop-ups, and reading the latest chapters of Starting from the World of Martial Arts with No Pop-ups. Chapter 1. The Foolish Son of the Landlord's Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Foolish Son of the Landlord's Family. On the golden autumn moon, the warm breeze is gentle. Looking around, the whole piece is golden, this is the color of harvest. A young man sat lazily on the field ridge, with a wild grass root hanging from his mouth. He squinted his eyes and looked at the hard-working farmers in the field. A burst of footsteps startled the young man, who turned his head and saw the person with a slightly smug smile on his face. He said, "Mr. Yang, based on your expression, you should have achieved good results. How about that? The data is ready. Master, I have truly taken it. I am convinced to take it orally. Although someone's hair has turned white, their complexion is rosy and full of energy, especially now." Really? Then tell me, how are those fields? The young man cannot deny it, he had already seen the result before making a bet. "Sir, your 30-acre experimental field is of high quality, with a minimum yield of 4 stones per mu. Even a medium field has 3 stones, while a lower-grade dry field has reached 2 stones. What scientific planting method did you give me, sir? It's really useful." Butler Yang Xing looked at his half-grown childlike head and felt very complicated. He was the butler of the Su family and had been serving them for 3 generations. The Su family has a single lineage, and the previous 2 generations of family leaders did not last long. The previous generation's family leader was a little over 30 years old and passed away 2 years ago, leaving behind the current young family leader. It's not a good thing to have doubts about the country. The Su family may not be considered a noble family, but in Huayin County, they can also be considered prominent local gentry. From the first generation of family leaders who were admitted as scholars, to the second and third generations of family leaders who were all juren, one subject with 2 juren, perhaps in the areas where academic styles were prevalent in Jiangnan, it was not much. But in the area of Xi'an Prefecture, the status of juren is already very high. After all, even the county magistrate of Huayin County is very polite to the Su family. After 3 generations of development, the Su family now has landlords and county tycoons with 3,000 acres of fertile land. Such a large family business falls into the hands of a yellow-mouthed child, and naturally some people secretly covet it. Although the Su family has a single lineage, they also have some close relatives. However, in the past year, the methods of the young family head in front of him have also uplifted Yang Xing's heart. Those close relatives who secretly covet the property of the Su family have been educated clearly. Looking at the harmless young homeowner in front of him, Yang Xing boasted that he had lived for decades and could only exclaim a demon in his heart. Of course, right now, his heart is even more uplifted. 4 stones. The young man pursed his lips upon hearing the words, and his face seemed to show a hint of dissatisfaction. "That's it for now. Yang Lao, now we can fully promote my scientific planting. Also, don't forget about the animal husbandry industry." Sufan waved his hand and lazily informed Yang Xing, the butler, that he still had some surprise on his face when he saw this. However, he didn't disturb Sufan because he still had a lot to do, so he hurriedly left. 4 stones. Seeing Yang Xing leave, Su Fan shook his head. Compared to later generations who could easily weigh thousands of pounds, the current yield of grain per mu is still too low. A stone in front of me is only equivalent to 120 pounds, although it indicates that 1 pound is slightly heavier than later generations, it is not much different. For stones weigh less than 500 pounds, which is carefully taken care of by Su Fan, and many of them are planted according to the techniques of later generations. Even so, the yield per mu is still like this. Of course, Su Fan also understands that this is the only way, and it is also difficult to continue increasing production. Satisfaction is indeed not very satisfying. Su Fan is a traveler, but it is not omnipotent, and can only be like this. Looking into the distance, he slowly fell into silence. Unexpected travel, Su Fan is really speechless. In the original Earth, he can be considered a happy and prosperous second generation, lacking nothing. The result was spending the night at a bar with friends, and the next day waking up, he became the son of a landlord, and the landlord's father had just passed away, becoming the only heir. If we talk about identity, it's not that bad, it's not much worse than in the past life. But in front of him was a society lacking in all aspects, lacking in entertainment and material resources. It took him over a month to barely adapt to this. Thanks to his identity as the son of a landlord, if he were a farmer, Su Fan probably wouldn't have the courage to survive. As soon as he arrived, he settled in. After adapting, Su Fan gradually accepted this identity and immediately investigated the social background in order to live a better life. Through the butler, he also knew that he was in Huayin County, Xi'an Prefecture, and his background was during the Hongji period of the Ming dynasty. For the emperors of the Ming dynasty, Su Fan didn't know much. Apart from a bowl at the beginning and a rope at the end, there were also emperors like Zhu Di and the Carpenter Emperor. He doesn't know much about the others, even his name. Emperor Hongji, he doesn't understand. However, this does not hinder his survival. After all, he is only a landlord in a county town now, and the emperor is too far away from him. After understanding the social background, Su Fan also temporarily put his mind at ease. As long as it wasn't for Hong Wu and the late Ming dynasty, he was still relatively safe as a landlord. After getting familiar with his surroundings, he slowly began to transform the Su family. As for the relatives of his mother's family who coveted the Su family's business, he was sorry. Although his body was a 10-year-old child, his soul was indeed a young man in his 20s. Those relatives were not particularly powerful individuals. With the affection left by his deceased father and a little education, they dismissed those people. He completely took down the Su family. My original plan was to study and then achieve fame. Su Fan, a successful candidate, had no plans, but he believed that with his knowledge from 2 lifetimes, it would not be a big problem to pass the imperial examination a few years later. And once they passed the imperial examination, the Su family will no longer be in any danger. After all, the Su family is not a noble family, and a juren is enough to deter them. Moreover, Su Fan has no other ambitions. As for what it means to claim hegemony, this is not the end of the Ming dynasty. Even if he is not proficient in history, he knows that there is almost no chance of rebellion at this moment. After passing the imperial examination and becoming a small landlord, one can live a relatively carefree life. Originally, this was the plan. Even after dealing with those weird relatives at home, Su Fan found an old scholar to teach him. But an unexpected news disrupted many of his original plans. This news surprised him greatly and also excited him greatly. Huashan sect, there is a Huashan sect on the Huashan mountain next to them. At the same time, in the martial arts world, there are also Wudang Shaolin, Wiyue sword sect, and Sun Moon divine sect. Isn't this the martial arts world of Xiaoao Jianghu? When Su Fan learned this information, the first thing that came to his mind was the smiling and arrogant world he had seen in his past life, and the actress who portrayed Dongfang Bubi was also a domineering sidekick. Of course, with constant inquiries, Su Fan learned that the leader of the Huashan sect was not the familiar gentleman sword Yu Buchuan, but a person named Ning Qingyu. Gradually, Su Fan also realized that the current situation was not Xiaoao Jianghu, but its prequel, because the Huashan sect had not yet experienced the sword chi battle, and it was still the top sect in the Jianghu and the leader of the 5 mountains overlord. Of course, Su Fan doesn't care about these things. Whether it's the later Xiao Ao Jianghu or now, Su Fan's goal is to learn martial arts and become a martial arts master. The blue robe and jade shao, wielding a sword and reaching the ends of the earth, were what Su Fan had longed for in his past life. Unexpectedly, he couldn't complete it in his previous life, but in this life he had an opportunity, so he, who was forced to travel, gradually stopped complaining. Although I often feel a bit uncomfortable at night, without a brightly lit nightlife, I think that in the future, I can wield my sword, punish evil, and Su Fan's face also shows a hint of a smile. Almost, there are still 3 months left, which is the annual apprenticeship season of the Huashan sect. Su Zhe looked in the direction of Mount Hua and murmured softly. The current Huashan sect is renowned in the martial arts world. Its leader, Ning Qingyu, is a top-notch expert in the martial arts world. The new generation of Huashan Sword Saint has also gained a reputation. These are all things that Su Fan sent people to inquire about. It can be said that the Huashan sect is currently flourishing, even above Shaolin and Wudang. As for how the later Huashan sect turned into 3 or 2 cats of different sizes, Su Fan temporarily does not want to delve into it, because that is not something he can study now. At present, he only wants to join the Huashan sect, become a disciple of the Huashan sect, practice martial arts, and temporarily let go of everything else. As for why not go to other sects, knowing that there will be a sword energy conflict in the Huashan sect is very dangerous. But after thinking for a while, and with the news that he sent someone to inquire, Su Fan could only join the Huashan sect. The martial arts of Shaolin and Wudang go without saying, and their strength has always been top-notch. However, they are too far away from there, and even if they go to apprentice, it is difficult to be admitted to their sect. It's not easy to become a teacher these days. It is also strictly prohibited for various sects to accept disciples, especially for those who come from inner sects, which requires investigation, and further investigation. As for Su Fan's background, Wudang and Shaolin would never admit him to the inner sect. As the son of a landlord in the Huashan realm, if you don't go to worship Huashan and run to our side, what do you mean? Do you want to install spies? If it were any sect, they would think the same way. So, when it comes to admitting disciples, each sect will first investigate their background. So if Su Fan wants to cultivate advanced martial arts, he has no other choice but to worship Mount Hua. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Household Chores. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Household Chores, Master. Master. In the reception hall of Suzhuang, loud and respectful greetings kept coming from the audience. The only one they greeted was 11-year-old Su Fan, indicating Su Fan's current authority in the Su mansion. Indeed, after several attempts of balancing kindness and authority, he managed to tidy up the servants of the Su mansion in a neat and obedient manner, with his big stick and radish, which made the servants deeply grateful to him. Sit down. Su Fan sat on top of the living room, with a layer of high-quality fur blanket spread on the Grand Tutor's chair, while the others sat down one by one. The closest person to Su Fan is Yang Xing, the elder of Su Fu's 3 dynasties, who is Su Fu's butler. Next is a man with a long scar on his face, who is the leader of the Su family's security guard. The Su family was a gentry from Huayin County. Although their own clan was not prosperous, there were still 60 or 70 servants in total. After Su Fan became the head of the family, he once again paid to purchase 30 guards. Now, there are over 200 people in the entire Su family. Among them, there were no less than 40 guards guarding the house. Even this number is still increasing. Knowing that this is the world of martial arts, Su Fan naturally attaches more importance to the safety of the Su family. After all, ordinary people often have bandits who like to rob landlords and gentry in the countryside. Not to mention the world of martial arts, there are more mountain bandits, and there is also a group of martial arts heroes who enjoy robbing the rich to help the poor. Su Fan doesn't want to be the target of these people's looting. Of course, within the scope of the Huashan sect, a sect of Jianghu heroes will not come to cause trouble, and even bandits and mountain bandits are rare. But it doesn't mean there are none, especially during times of famine. There are still many people who take risks, and the Huashan faction cannot take care of everything. Sufan never hands over safety to others. Yang Lao, yes, sir, you said. Upon hearing Su Fan's roll call, Yang Xing stood up. The experimental field has been completed, so now that our family's 3,000 acres of land can be fully implemented, I believe those tenants have also visited it, and they will not have any doubts. Yes, sir. These past few days, those farmers in the farmhouses have been running to find the old man every day, hoping to receive guidance. When Yang Xing spoke of this, a smile appeared on his face. Su Fu had 100 tenant households, and Su Fu's 3,000 acres of land, almost more than 2,000 acres, were all planted by these tenants. Very good. Sufan nodded and said that if his cheap father still had 3,000 acres of land in the Su family, he wouldn't need to pay too much tax, after all, he was a Juren. But his father died, he is not a Juren, so he naturally has to pay taxes. Originally, 3,000 acres of land, excluding tenants, and some of the court's harsh taxes and levies, could leave about 1,000 stones each year. But now, it is estimated to be at most 600 or 700 stones. If it were silver, it would only be 500 or 600 taels, not much. He is a junior of 300 in the Su family, and he can eat and wear a lot in a year. So increasing production in this fertile field is a big deal. According to his method, at least a few hundred stones, or hundreds of taels of silver, can be harvested each year. It didn't matter before, a few hundred taels were enough for him to eat and drink. But for now, he needs to practice martial arts, so that's not enough. Although he has not yet practiced martial arts, he knows that wealth is indispensable, especially in order to achieve a certain level of cultivation. So he needs to explore new ways of earning money. Relying solely on the output of the fields may not be enough for future cultivation. Although he has a cheat, it is only a blessing on the inner side, and cannot be blessed on the outer side. Therefore, if he wants to cultivate faster and higher, then drug use is the mainstream. He has been thinking these days about how to make money. In fact, there are also many businesses that come with quick money, such as the salt and iron business, which is definitely the best way. Among the salt traders in the Jianghuai region, which one is not holding 1,000,000 silver taels, the 8 major families in Shaanxi rely on smuggling grasslands to have these millions of assets. However, with his current small physique, these are definitely not relevant. So after thinking for a long time, Suja thought of starting from a young age, such as snacks and restaurants. With the knowledge of future generations, not to mention anything else, he was confident that even an emperor would not have his own delicacy in eating alone. Naturally, he thought of braised meat. In today's dynasty, with developed commerce and expensive spices, it was no longer during the Sui and Tang dynasties, as only nobles could afford it. So he is preparing to expand this business. In fact, he added this braised flavor to the Su family's Huayin City restaurant, and the business is indeed good. Therefore, Su Fan is preparing to take it out and start a separate business. So he looked at a middle-aged man on his right and said, "Manager how is the business of the Su family restaurant now?" "Sir, since you provided braised dishes, our business has greatly increased and we have become the second largest restaurant in Huayin City, second only to Xinyue restaurant." "So how is your monthly income now?" Su Fan asked. "Besides the cost, there is a surplus of 60 taels per month," said Hu Guancher with some pride. "The net profit per month is 60 taels, which is 700 or 800 taels per year, and this income is not low. It was already quite good to have 100 taels in the past year. It can be seen from this that this braised food is selling well." Upon hearing this, Suja nodded and still understood that dishes from later generations could be brought over. "So, Hu Guancher, I'm planning to take out this braised food separately and open a dedicated braised food store." "What? Master, what should we do?" What should we do with our restaurant? Hu Guanshi suddenly became anxious. Now, the Su family's restaurant relies on this braised flavor. If we don't have braised dishes, it's probably going to become the same again. Hu Guanshi, don't worry. Although I will take it out alone, your restaurant won't move. Additionally, I will arrange for the kitchen to add a few dishes to your restaurant, is what the master said true. Upon hearing this, Hu Guanshi was immediately pleasantly surprised, regardless of his previous experience. As one of the managers of the Su family, he had eaten a family banquet in the Su family and naturally knew the deliciousness of the dishes. Su Fan nodded and continued, then let's have a separate braised flavor small restaurant. What I mean is not only in Huayin City, but also in several nearby counties. What do you think? No problem, a few butlers nodded, everyone understood that this was a profitable business, and no one stopped it. Moreover, they all knew that the master had made money, and they were never stingy with them. So since that's the case, I'll leave this matter to you, Yang Zhen. Su Zhe looked at the young man sitting at the bottom. Master, isn't that good? Yang Zhen is still too young. After Su Fan finished speaking, Ong Xing stood up and wanted to oppose it. He. Mr. Yang, Brother Zhen is already in his 20s and not young anymore. Moreover, he handles family matters very well. I can rest assured to leave it to him. Yang Zhen is Yang Xing's youngest son, who grew up in the Su family since childhood, so he naturally feels at ease. Upon seeing this, Yang Xing may have faced some difficulties on the surface, but he is still very happy inside. After all, he also knows that this is a good business, and if it is done well, it goes without saying. Okay, that's settled. After Su Fan's words were settled, he immediately looked at the scar-faced man, who was the leader of the Su family's guards. This person's name is Lu Tong, who is in his 40s. He was originally the general flag in the hands of a general in Datong town. Due to offending the Shangguan, he was looked down upon and forced to engage in a fierce battle with the grassland Tartars. Fortunately, he escaped and was saved by Su Fan's father. I have been serving as a guard for the Su family all along. Although this person is the general flag, his abilities are not bad, but his personality is a bit straightforward. After Su Fan learned about it, he still felt a little happy. This guy's strength is not bad. If given good equipment, he can even become an enemy of 100 people on the battlefield, and his combat skills are not even inferior to those of second-rate martial artists in the martial arts world. Guard Lu, subordinate in, when Lu Tong heard Su Fan call him, he immediately straightened up and looked at Su Fan with bright and lively eyes. He could see the changes in the Su family these days, and he was also aware of Su Fan's importance to him. Especially recently when Su Fan reorganized the guards of the Su family, he was even happier. He knew very well what the guards of the Su family used to look like, and most of them were just eating and drinking. Some of them are relatives of the Su family, even inferior to the thugs in the city. After some rectification, there are only 40 people left, but they are all hard-working children of farmers. If he trains them, they can not only become elite soldiers, but also protect the safety of the Su family. Guard Lu, all the guards of the Su family will be handed over to you. You are originally from the military and should have some skills in training soldiers. I need you to train these guards to be able to fight. I wonder if Guard Lu is confident. Su Fan looked at Lu Tong and said. Lu Tong hesitated for a moment. I know Lu's concerns, let's do it this way. As long as Lu has any needs, I will provide everything. In terms of logistics, you don't have to worry, I will give you a lot of points. I only need a security team that can fight for my Su family in case of crisis. Su Fan looked at Lu Tong, but there was a majestic expression on his immature face that did not match his grade. Master, rest assured that I will definitely be able to practice it. Upon hearing that he could provide all the logistics, Lu Tong immediately became confident. However, he knew that the Su family in the future did not lack food. With 3,000 acres of land and some shops in the county, it was not difficult to build an elite escort team of 50 people. He has this confidence. Okay. Lu, the Su family's guard team will be handed over to you. For now, it will mainly consist of 60 people, but in the future, it will be increased. Suja said a faint sentence, but it made everyone in the hall look different. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Little Golden Finger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Little Golden Finger. As Su Fanxin's orders continued to be issued, not only the Su family estate, but also several villages near the Su family estate became busy. Especially in the village where the Su family estate is located, it is even busier. Although there are only 100 households in this village, half of the people are tenants of the Su family. Su Fan's first command was to promote farming techniques, and these tenants had already known about it early on. They all eagerly followed the old farmers of the Su family to learn. The other villagers naturally hope to learn, and Su Fan treats them equally. The Su family is an outsider, and this estate of the Su family was established by Grandpa Su Fan 20 years ago. As an outsider, due to the implementation of low rent in recent years, it has received gratitude from this village and nearby villages. Su Fan naturally had no reason to stop such a strategy. After all, he knew that in this era, the power of the village tribe was not small, and the imperial power did not go to the countryside. He also hoped to obtain this invisible right. In fact, in recent years, most of the power in several villages near Suzhuang has been controlled by the Su family. Although there are also clan elders in these villages, the Su family is very fair in their actions, so they have always supported the Su family. This is a good thing. So the reputation of the Su family has always been excellent in Huayin County. Su Fan naturally wants to maintain this good reputation, not to mention anything else. In the future, in the Huashan sect, he will also be looked up by the higher-ups. Of course, this is Su Fan's own imagination, and whether it will happen or not is unknown. However, this is just done by Su Fan casually and effortlessly. Farming, livestock breeding, and training for guards are thriving with the strong support of Su Zhuang. Su Zhuang's silver is also flowing out with a splash, which most people feel sorry for. However, Su Fan doesn't care because it's just a preliminary investment. When there is harvest, then there is more. As for several shops in the city, they are also constantly increasing, and their monthly income will also explode. When the Su family's strength becomes stronger, Su Fan is also preparing to intervene in the brewing industry, which is an excellent business. Besides these, Su Fan himself is also actively responding to the upcoming Huashan Sect Apprenticeship Conference. He has already sent people to understand the rules for accepting apprentices of the Huashan Sect. There are 3 steps for the Huashan Sect to accept apprentices. The first thing is to verify his identity. The first point is that Su Fan is very reassured because his background is definitely the favorite of the Huashan Sect, and he himself is at the foot of Huashan and also a landlord. Usually, such disciples, after being received by Huashan, will even pay tribute to the Huashan sect, which is also one of the income of the Huashan sect in recent years. The second is to touch the bones and check the root bones. Su Fan cannot be certain about this, but even if the root bones are poor, with his identity, he is still able to enter the outer gate of the Huashan sect and is not valued at most. However, Su Fan believes that with his cheats, as long as he can cultivate, his cultivation speed will not be inferior to those with extremely high talents. The third is to test the mental courage of the disciples. It may be different each time, but it's roughly the same. Su Fan believes this won't be difficult for him, but during this period, he still tries his best to exercise his body. Originally, his body was not very good, as evidenced by the early deaths of his grandfather and father, his genes were not very good. But after Su Fan traveled, he attached great importance to his body and immediately sought medical attention for maintenance and exercise. At the same time, he also learned a skill in 5 animal play from a famous doctor in Xi'an Prefecture. Wuqingxi is not an internal skill in the martial arts world, but a method of health preservation and exercise. It was passed down from Hua Tuo of the Three Kingdoms. Su Fan used his golden finger as a cheat and has been practicing for a year now. His health is very good. At the age of 11, he has grown into a calf, and no one opposes him even when he is 13 or 14 years old. Of course, the reason for this effect, besides taking a large amount of soup and medicine, is his golden finger. This golden finger was also discovered by Su Fan a month after crossing the river. It is not a system or an artifact. In Su Fan's words, it is just a hanging machine with little effect. A transparent little person appears in my mind, seemingly a replica of him. Whenever he wants to learn something, this little person will evolve and learn. After a villain evolves, it will fall into his soul. It is a software for learning on the go. After a year of exploration, this thing, if said to be useless, naturally impossible, after all, it can accelerate his learning. Now that scholar's knowledge has been learned by him, with his current knowledge reserves, there is absolutely no problem getting a scholar's degree, and this is the role of cheating. But it only has this effect and cannot improve strength, such as adding points to make the body stronger. For example, a knife technique can evolve in the mind while hanging up the machine, but in reality, Su Fan still needs continuous cultivation to unleash it. However, this process can be shortened, just like a martial arts master personally guiding him, which is the effect, and even can guide him to the most suitable cultivation. The role of the idle person is currently limited to these. Through exploration, it was found that this hanging machine does not operate 24 hours a day, but seems to be related to his energy. Every time he delves into his mind, it takes about an hour for this transparent little person to slowly disappear, and at that time, he will be completely exhausted. This can also be considered a disadvantage of hanging the machine, as it can only run for 1 hour a day. However, Su Fan was already very satisfied. After all, this cheating machine had helped him a lot. Apart from everything else, if he hadn't cheated on the machine, it would probably take him 5 years to achieve the current situation. On the side of the idle villain, the 5 animal play has evolved into a state of great success, and his body is also about to have a small success. This is also because his body is too small, some of which cannot be practiced yet. Even so, his arms are no stronger than those of adult men now. Moreover, he believed that these 5 animal plays could also strengthen muscles and bones. Perhaps after achieving great success in cultivation, he could even improve his bones. He learned 5 animal plays in just 1 year, without any other martial arts skills. One reason is that I will join the Huashan faction in the future, and secondly, the hanging device is not very efficient. In just 1 month, you can join the Huashan school, and the 5 birds opera is temporarily over. After running the machine again late at night, Su Fan's face showed a hint of fatigue. But the recipe for the nourishing soup also needs to be obtained by hand, as the name suggests. Yangshan Tang is used to nourish the mind and is also in the hands of a famous doctor from Xi'an Prefecture. This Yangshan Tang has an effect on Su Fan's cheating, and after drinking it, it can increase the power of circulation by half an hour. However, this nourishing soup requires 10 taels of silver per pair, but it's not cheap. Of course, Su Fan is aware that the cost is definitely not so high. After all, famous doctors also need to make money. Su Fan's idea is to get the other party's soup and medicine formula. Then pair up on your own, which can save some costs. Although he has money, he will definitely learn more silver in the future when practicing martial arts. Huashan Sect Sword Chi Chong Xiao Hall. Junior brother, take a look. Lin has received news that a group of bandits have arrived in the Qinling Mountains, specializing in robbing and killing passing merchants. Many affiliated merchants of the sect have come to complain. Ning Qingyu called for the letter and it reached the hands of several junior brothers below, with a hint of sharpness in her eyes. Senior brother, what identity do these bandits dare to provoke our Huashan sect? Yuan Qingming's face was somewhat suspicious. Huashan is connected to the Qinling Mountains, which is also one of the traditional chassis of the Huashan sect. Generally, in the territory of the Huashan sect, even some bandits dare not take action against the affiliated merchants of the Huashan sect. Humph, junior brother Lin said that these bandits' strength is not weak, and all three leaders have first-class military strength. What? 3 first-class. The several elders of Mount Hua present were not calm anymore. A first-class warrior is already a high-level figure in the martial arts world. In top sects like the Huashan sect, they are all elders and high-level figures, and some second-rate sects are even pillars. Even if they are as strong as the Huashan sect, they are only 21st-class warriors now. If 3 first-class warriors suddenly appear, they can all form a first-class force. And according to Lin's observation, it seems that the 3 of them have martial arts from the same sect. Ning Qingyu once again brought out a shocking news, and everyone's faces changed. They are not afraid of these bandits. Just jokingly, they can be beaten by the Huashan sect alone. Coupled with the 5 sacred sword sect, even Shaolin and Wudong would be very wary. What they are truly shaking is that it is definitely not easy to cultivate 3 first-class forces. This kind of inheritance definitely belongs to the top sect and has the power of profound inheritance. Senior brother, do you know the origins of these 3 people? Being able to cultivate to the top level, and coming from the same sect, it is obvious that they are not top-notch martial artists in the martial arts world. Almost all of them are top-notch martial artists in the martial arts world, and there are hardly any pairs of them, let alone 3. Everyone is selfish. Will you share the legacy of your predecessors with others? It's impossible. Maybe someone took it away before they even practiced. Upon hearing his junior brother's inquiry, Ning Qingyu's face darkened and he said, Junior brother Lin said their martial arts skills are very similar to those of that family. That one, although Ning Qingyu didn't mention which one, everyone understood and their faces were suddenly filled with anger. Over the years, their Huashan faction has been trying to break through the boundaries of Shangxi, but they have been preventing them and even being secretly suppressed. It can be said that the Huashan sect has long been angry with them, but they have been unable to take action due to their strength and prestige. Now seeing them secretly causing trouble for them again, all the elders of the Huashan sect are extremely angry. Senior brother leader. Shut up. Ning Qingyu knew what Xiong junior brother wanted to say, so he glared at him and didn't give him a chance to speak. Now, the strength of the Huashan sect is not much better than the variants, but they still have the demon cult watching from the side. There should be no mistakes at all, otherwise it would be falling off a cliff. This matter ends here, Yuan junior brother. Take a few junior brothers with you to help Lin junior brother, unplug that place, and leave none of those 3 behind. Ning Qingyu said coldly. As for junior brother Xiong, the 3-year apprenticeship gathering of the sect has arrived, and this time it's up to you. After speaking, Ning Qingyu left the Sword Chi Chongshao Hall directly. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Entrance to the Mountain. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 4 Entrance to the Mountain. Yuchuan Courtyard at the foot of Huashan Mountain is a separate courtyard of the Huashan sect. Dawn has descended, and the originally quiet Yuchuan Courtyard is now filled with noisy sounds, even the distant Huayin County can be heard. Inside and outside, surrounded by dozens of circles, looking around, the head was pitch black. The apprenticeship gathering of the Huashan sect has begun, and several county towns near the foot of Huashan Mountain have flocked in. Adults and half-aged children have rushed into the Yuchuan courtyard. A group of children from Wuyangyang, no less than 400 or 500 in size. For the lower-class farmers, their idea is simple. Send their children up the mountain, no matter what, the family can reduce the burden. As the saying goes, half a big boy, eat a poor old man. Not only the lower-class farmers, but also many wealthy families send their children to Huashan, hoping that their children can use the Huashan school to leap over the Dragon Gate. In the world of martial arts, there are also outstanding martial arts skills, and many small landlords hope that their children can become disciples of the Huashan sect, and then be able to give feedback to their families. Therefore, every time the Huashan sect recruits disciples, many gentry and landlords come, and a large proportion of the Huashan sect's disciples come from these. Especially the outer disciples of the Huashan sect, Chicheng is the son of local gentry and wealthy people. Be quiet, everyone. The noise and crowding seemed to have angered the elder in charge. Zhang, who was as big as a human bear, let out a roar like a lion's roar, causing everyone's eardrums to crack and then fell silent. Sufan looked at the bear elder with a humanoid gorilla, his heart still trembling. He was nearly 2 meters tall, with 2 dragon-like arms, probably even stronger than the NBA giants he had seen in his past life. Is this Nima an inner sect elder of the Huashan sect? Su Fan was a bit skeptical. The figure of Elder Xiong is similar to that of an elder of the Diamond sect. As soon as Su Fan thought of this guy wielding a 3-foot-long sword and using the Huashan sword technique, he suddenly felt a sense of joy in his heart. Everyone line up for me. The roar of Elder Xiong's jar made the little ones around show a look of fear on their faces, indicating that Elder Xiong's appearance frightened them. Subsequently, disciples of the Huashan sect emerged from the Yuchuan Academy and organized Su Fan and others to step into the academy one by one for bone testing. As for the first round of apprenticeship, it had already ended before. Su Fan and his team had already registered before, and the Huashan sect had already sent people to verify their identities. The bone-touching part was very boring, especially as the elders mercilessly said, "I'm waiting from the bottom of my bones," as they were being brushed down one by one. The scene where the children wanted to cry but didn't dare to cry made Su Fan feel a bit restless. He is worried that he will also be ruthlessly brushed down, waiting for the bottom of his bones, which means he cannot cultivate and may not even have the chance to enter the beginner level. Once unable to enter Mount Hua, Su Fan could only search for other sects, but it was probably difficult. In the end, he could only obtain them from the wandering cultivators in the martial arts world. Not to mention the difficulty, those martial arts skills were probably very poor. So Su Fan prayed in his heart that he didn't need a good foundation, he just needed to wait and have the opportunity to try entering the outer door. Finally, it was Su Fan's turn, and it happened to be the elder Xiong who touched his bones. "Oh. How old are you, kid?" Elder Xiong was a bit depressed. Judging from Su Fan's appearance, he was probably 14 or 15 years old. How did the people below do it? They usually recruit disciples from the Huashan sect between the ages of 10 and 12, and those who are older than 12 generally do not go to recruit them, unless they have extremely strong talent and bones. Returning to the elder, the boy is 11 years old this year. Sufan naturally knew that his height was not like that of 11 or 12-year-old children. After all, among these children, his noticeably taller figure was indeed very confusing. 11 years old. Interesting. Upon hearing this, Elder Xiong burst out laughing and said, "Good kid, what did you grow up eating?" "Put your hand out." Immediately after, Elder Xiong eagerly grabbed Su Fan's hand and touched it, then his limbs, back, and so on. After some exploration, his smile remained unchanged on his face. Good bone quality, moderate. With Elder Xiong's words, Su Fan's previously tense heart finally came to an end. "Good kid, work hard in the next level and strive to enter the mountain gate." Then the former patted Su Fan's shoulder. "Brother Xiong, it seems that he has great confidence in this little guy." The other elders on the side immediately smiled and said when they saw this, "Haha. This kid looks like me at first glance. 11 years old is even taller than 14 or 15 years old. If we cultivate him well in the future, maybe he can be like me." Elder Xiong grinned heartily. He was an alternative to the Huashan sect, and among the average disciples of the Huashan sect, there was no one as robust as him. After touching the bones, Su Fan was taken to another place where everyone had advanced. It was apparent that there were 60 or 70 people, but in this second level alone, almost half of them were eliminated. Obviously, the level of martial arts training qualification can be easily eliminated, and Su Fan knows that in fact, he is of low quality and has almost no achievements. Most of these people, if their intelligence is not high, may still be rejected after staying outside the Huashan sect for a few years. Even if you enter the mountain gate, you can't always carry it with you. There are still tests outside the Huashan sect, and if you don't meet the standards, you will be let go of the mountain gate. However, Su Fan is confident that with this cheat, he will definitely not be brushed off. With fewer and fewer children in Yuchuan Academy, the day-long bone touching has finally come to an end, and only half of them have entered the final test of the third level. And these 200 people are estimated to be defeated by more than half in the third level. According to the fact that the Huashan sect only accepts 60 or 70 disciples each time, this time it's similar. After a day's rest, Su Fan arrived at Yuchuan courtyard with full energy the next day. This time, the number of people was indeed much smaller, especially the adults of the children were driven away. The test of the third level was originally expected by Su Fan, but when he found out that they were going to climb the mountain and climb the Lotus Peak on their own, it was considered a pass. Suddenly, Su Fan lost interest. It was just a test of endurance. As for courage, although the mountain path of Huashan was indeed somewhat rugged, there were no cliffs or cliffs leading to Lianhua Peak. So in the end, Su Fan arrived at Lianhua Peak smoothly, which was also him. Many other children were different, after all, his soul was in his 20s. In addition to practicing the 5 animal play and more than a year of exercise, his physical fitness is definitely among the top among this group. And Su Fan finally entered the Huashan sect, along with him were another 52 people, which means that this time, the Huashan sect received a total of 53 people. Became a first-year outer disciple of the Huashan sect. The outer gate of the Huashan sect does not live on the mountain, but in a canyon below the Lotus Peak, where there is a group of buildings, which can be considered a village. Here, the disciples of the Huashan sect's outer gate are all beginners. Apart from miscellaneous workers, there are about 400 disciples from the outer sect, almost all of whom are disciples from the outer sect within 10 years. After a day of learning, Su Fan also gained some understanding of the disciples of the Huashan sect. The Huashan sect is divided into inner and outer disciples. However, in reality, the disciples of the Zhengshan Huashan sect are still inner disciples because outer disciples are not recorded in the records of the Huashan sect. Nowadays, there are 200 disciples from the inner sect of the Huashan sect, and 800 or 900 disciples from the outer sect. Among them, there are more than 400 disciples from the outer sect within 10 years, and the rest have been arranged by the Huashan sect to be responsible for some matters of the Huashan sect. There are also a set of rules for how to promote external disciples of the Huashan sect to internal disciples. Firstly, there is a grand competition at the outer gate of Huashan every 3 years, just like taking in apprentices. After the big competition, a generation of disciples and elders from the inner sect choose to accept disciples. Once they are recruited by the inner sect elders or disciples, they will automatically be promoted to inner sect disciples. Every newcomer has 3 opportunities for a big competition. If no one accepts you as an apprentice after 3 major competitions, there is almost no possibility of entering the inner gate. Of course, it is not absolute. If your Huashan heart technique reaches the 4th level in the 10th year, even if no one accepts you as an apprentice, you can still enter the inner gate and be passed on by the elder of merit transmission. But this possibility is almost non-existent, because within 10 years, the Huashan heart technique will enter the 4th level, and this qualification may have been accepted by the elder of the Qi sect long ago, unless it is a rapid progress within a year after your 3rd major competition. It can be said that the promotion of the Huashan sect is already quite fair. If you cannot achieve it, it can only be attributed to your qualifications and hard work. Secondly, entering the outer gate is not necessarily safe. Within 5 years, if the Huashan heart technique cannot break through the first level, then just go down the mountain and not even stay at the outer gate. Unable to enter the inner gate, some disciples from the outer gate can also live well, practicing the Huashan heart technique for 20 years and becoming a second-rate master. Putting them outside is not only a great freedom, but at least protecting the family is still possible. But being expelled from the outside world would be really unfortunate, with almost no future. If it were from a good family background, it would be fine. The son of a farmer would probably have been dealing with the fields for a lifetime. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Cultivating Mind Techniques. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Cultivating Mind Techniques. Huashan Luoyan Valley is the stronghold of the Huashan sect's external disciples for learning. New external disciples, who have entered the Huashan sect, are also arranged here to teach alongside those old students. The disciples in charge of Su Fan and his team in this period are composed of 3 inner disciples and 5 outer disciples with a cultivation level of over 10 years, all of whom are above second rate. You kid can read. You even recognize all the meridian maps. Standing next to Su Fan was the eldest disciple of the 18th generation of the outer sect. Although he was not able to enter the inner sect, he had practiced for more than 10 years and now the Huashan heart method has reached the 5th level. Not to mention the same period, even the outer sect disciples who surpassed him by 1 generation may not be able to surpass him. He can be considered a representative of thick accumulation and thin hair. He is responsible for teaching the new generation of outer disciples, and it is also a reward from the elders of the Huashan sect. Once he does well, he is likely to be admitted to the inner sect. Yes, Senior Brother Wu, Su Fan nodded seriously, and then under the test of the former, he answered all correctly. At this moment, Senior Brother Wu's face finally changed. The other responsible persons also leaned in one after another upon hearing this. They were all shocked to hear Wu Yu's words. Alright, since you can read and recognize the meridian and acupoint maps, I will teach you the 10 brocades of Mount Hua from tomorrow onwards. For new disciples, the first thing to do is to read and read. This is the minimum requirement. If you don't know how to read, you want to learn martial arts, especially internal skills. That's just a joke. True disciples of the Great Gate sect, not a single one is illiterate. Perhaps they have not studied deeply, but they have also studied for at least a few years. In addition to reading and writing, there is also the need to nourish the body. After all, some of the disciples who enter the outside world come from rural families and have not had a good life since childhood. The combination of 10 brocade satins and Huashan's medicinal bath is the best stage of health preservation. Although Su Fan has prepared a lot in advance, he still cannot avoid the health preservation stage. Su Fan doesn't mind this, on the contrary, he is very willing to learn. The 10 brocades and 5 animal plays are similar, both of which are techniques for exercising the body. However, the 10 brocades mainly exercise the limbs, making them more flexible. Compared to the 5 animal plays, which comprehensively improve physical fitness, they are still a bit inferior. This is also Su Fan's feeling after 10 days of formal study. In 10 days, with the help of cheats, he had already started learning, and if it weren't for fear of causing shock, he could have achieved success. Most of the other children could only barely exercise the first 2 movements, but he had already completed the set of 10 brocade and 12 movements. This also shocked and surprised Senior Brother Wu, who was in charge of teaching Su Fan, because teaching such a genius would also benefit him. A month has passed in the blink of an eye. Su Fan followed the study honestly for a month. On this day, Wu Yu found Su Fan. Junior Brother Su, Senior Brother Wu, may I ask if you have anything to do with me? Su Fan bowed and looked at the former with a puzzled expression. Ha! Junior Brother Su, you have been beginner for a month now and are very skilled in all 10 brocades. As for your physical fitness, to be honest, since I joined the sect, I have met hundreds of beginner disciples. Among the new ones, you are definitely at the forefront, speaking of which, Wu Yu also gave a thumbs up. Generally speaking, new disciples need to learn literacy and exercise their bodies, which takes a year. However, for you, junior brother, these are not necessary anymore. It seems that junior brother, you were already prepared before coming to the sect. Hee hee. Su Fan smiled innocently upon hearing the words. Since that's the case, senior brother, I won't waste your time either. Next, I will teach you the basic swordsmanship and basic mental skills of Huashan. Speaking of this, Wu Yu's expression became unusually serious. Junior brother, our basic mental technique in Huashan is the one that all external disciples practice uniformly, so it is very important. You should be aware that although you are beginner, there is still a risk of being expelled from the sect. If you cannot break through the first level of mental technique within 5 years, you will have to leave the sect. In addition, if you want to enter the inner gate, this mental technique is also very important. Junior brother, remember, there is a big competition in the outer gate. For the first time, everyone is okay, and it is difficult for the elders of the inner gate to come and recruit disciples. The only thing that can attract them is your breakthrough in mental techniques. Junior brother, you are very lucky because your cultivation time is almost a year longer than others. I hope you can seize this year well. Wu Yu said a lot scattered. However, judging from the other person's tone, Su Fan estimated that this person would also be a disciple of the Qi sect when entering the inner gate in the future. Don't worry, senior brother. I will definitely work hard to cultivate the Huashan heart technique. Su Fan said with a resolute expression, but his heart was not surprised. The Sword sect and the Qi sect seemed to be a complete joke to Su Fan. Su Fan doesn't believe that the Sword sect and the Qi sect of the Huashan sect were split up because of a sunflower treasure book. Whether it's practicing swordsmanship or Qi, it's all about enhancing one's own strength. Those high-level officials can't see it, really can't see it, they're really stupid. Sword sect and Qi sect are just one concept. In the early stage of the Sword sect, they may have been stronger due to their focus on swordsmanship, while in the early stage, the Qi sect was definitely not as strong due to their cultivation of internal power. As for the later stage, it doesn't necessarily have to be stronger than the Sword sect. After all, with the same internal strength, the Sword sect will definitely have an advantage. However, it may be faster for the Qi sect to break through the top tier, as they have always focused on internal power. At the same time, the Qi sect may break through faster. The top-notch elder of the inner sect, the Qi sect is indeed a bit more than the Sword sect. Of course, Su Fan is not yet aware of these, but when it comes to the concepts of Sword sect and Qi sect, he is indeed more inclined towards Qi sect. However, he will not think that Sword sect is not as good as Lao Yu. In the later stage of the Huashan sect, even though there were no more people left, they still held this philosophy. It should be noted that the disciples of the Qi sect are often the older the grade, the more powerful they become. And the Sword sect, unlike in their 20s and 30s, is able to achieve second-rate martial arts, even with stronger talents. Even under the age of 40, their strength is comparable to first class. Internal strength does not represent strength. Some disciples of the Sword sect may not have reached the first class level of Zayas Hushan's internal strength, but with the Sword sect swordsmanship, they can also compete with top-notch martial artists in the martial arts world, which is not without them. In the world of Xiaoao Jianghu, if Lao Yu were not so rigid, his disciples would have some second-rate strength. With the foundation of Mount Hua, he would not have been bullied and suffered such a disastrous defeat. So in Su Fan's eyes, whether it's internal strength or swordsmanship, he wants it all. He grabs it with both hands, which is the most suitable and important for himself. Junior brother, as long as you understand, here, I'll teach you the Huashan mind technique. Wu Yu nodded in satisfaction when he saw this, and he just brought it up here, unable to make decisions for him. Then he began to carefully explain the Huashan heart technique to Su Fan, which was very important. Junior brother, Huashan heart technique is the most basic heart technique of our Huashan sect, but don't underestimate it. Huashan heart technique has 10 layers and can be practiced successfully, making one an unparalleled powerhouse. There are only a few internal mental techniques that our sect can cultivate to an unparalleled level, and they are also top-notch mental techniques in the martial arts world. Moreover, the Huashan mental technique is a Taoist mental technique that is moderate and peaceful, and is not easy to become demonic. Apart from slow cultivation, it has no shortcomings and is most suitable for us newcomers. After explaining the first level of the Huashan heart technique to Su Fan, Wu Yu specifically mentioned it. Junior brother, next, I will cross a strand of internal power and help you operate the first layer of the mind technique's movement route. Once you have a sense of qi, you can move according to this route. After speaking, Wu Yu placed his palm on Su Fan's abdomen. In no time, Su Fan felt a sudden surge of heat in his abdomen, which slowly flowed and made Su Fan very curious. Converge your mind and remember the route of internal energy transport. Wu Yu's warning sounded in his ear, and Su Fan quickly restrained his mind, trying to remember the route of the hot air's transport. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. External Cheat Cultivation plus Krypton Gold. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. External Cheat Cultivation plus Krypton Gold. Late at night, Su Fan finished meditating and felt mentally exhausted, so he didn't plan to continue practicing. It's time to take down the nourishing soup. It has been half a year since he arrived in Huashan. 5 months ago, he received the Huashan heart technique from Wu Yu, and it was only 3 days later that he felt angry. This speed is really not fast. The kind of cultivation genius can feel qi in half a day, and it is even said that the sword sect genius in the inner gate can feel qi in just 3 hours. Obviously, his talent is not very good, and 3 days is only considered average, at an average level. However, Su Fan had already been mentally prepared for this. His talent was not strong, and he could cheat and earn money, so he was not worried. He believes that with all these blessings, his cultivation speed will not be faster than those geniuses. In fact, after 5 months of cultivation, he has completely reached the first level of Huashan heart method, and it won't even be long before he can open up the third meridian and reach the second level of heart method. The speed of cultivation can be described as not bad, and this cultivation speed alone is really not inferior to some geniuses. The cultivation of internal mental skills and the external cheat in my mind have indeed played a significant role. Internal skill cultivation is the process of refining essence and transforming qi into internal force. Through cultivation, the essence and qi in the body are transformed into internal force, and through a special path of movement, the meridians and orifices in the body are opened up, converging into the elixir field. There are several major difficulties throughout the entire process. Su Fan's own understanding was given through the knowledge of later generations. Firstly, it is efficiency, the efficiency of transforming essence into internal power. This should be the essence of martial arts. Some divine arts have high conversion efficiency, and different martial arts may have different conversion efficiency, resulting in different accumulated internal power. Of course, all of this knowledge is Su Fan's own understanding. After all, he has only seen the Huashan mind technique now. And Huashan heart method, as a basic heart method, does not have high conversion efficiency, otherwise the cultivation speed would not be so slow. Of course, it also has an advantage, which is that the internal strength it exercises is moderate and peaceful. When opening the meridian orifices, it will not cause any damage to them. Apart from the first point being the reason for the cultivation of the mind, the second difficulty in cultivating the mind is the essence. The essence of the human body also conforms to the law of energy conservation. You cannot transform without limits. Once you practice too much, it will damage your body. Some martial artists in the martial arts world are as thin as a stick, often caused by the damage of their techniques. The essence cultivated by martial artists mostly comes from the food they eat, and the essence of their body is generally not transformed. Due to the low efficiency of refining and the limited amount of energy contained in food, the amount of internal energy produced each day is naturally limited. As for overeating, your stomach function is just that big, and you can't eat too much if you want to. Even if the stomach function of martial artists is far superior to that of ordinary people, there are still boundaries. So some wealthy warriors often put effort into eating well, adding medicinal herbs containing vitality to their food as a dietary therapy. There is also the Huashan sect, and these external disciples have a meal every day that contains vitality. Of course, in Su Fan's eyes, their vitality is still very low. After all, the general public cannot be so good either. Thirdly, when cultivating and transforming internal power, it consumes a lot of energy. Generally, new disciples who practice meditation only spend half an hour a day. No matter how much they spend, their energy will be depleted. Of course, the higher their cultivation level, the longer they will persist. Finally, it is the process of unblocking the meridians and orifices, which is the most dangerous moment. In the martial arts world, it is common to go crazy and fall victim to this. And the most important aspect of an internal mental skill is the path of movement, the experience of opening up meridians and orifices, all of which have been passed down by countless ancestors. On this aspect, the Damen faction has the most advantage because they have the experience left by countless predecessors, but even so, it cannot be underestimated. Of course, the process of unblocking the meridians is also the most mental consuming. Once the energy is low, the warrior must stop, otherwise a careless move can damage the meridians. After several months of cultivation, Su Fan has sorted out the difficulties in cultivating internal skills. These are the 4 main points. As long as they are mastered, the cultivation can definitely soar. The first point cannot be achieved unless Su Fan can enter the inner gate and exchange for a more advanced internal mental skill. The second and third points, Su Fan can be strengthened. Medicine and food are nothing more than consuming money, which Su Fan has an advantage over many disciples. The Su family belongs to him alone, and their wealth is rapidly accumulating. As for the spiritual aspect, the nourishing soup can accelerate recovery, which is also the reason why he wants to take it down. As for the last point, the cheat in his mind can be completely dealt with. The transparent little person has evolved since Su Fan obtained the mind technique, and the transparent meridians and acupoints are clearly displayed. Every time Su Fan practices martial arts, he can completely follow the evolution of the transparent little person in his mind without making any mistakes, and the speed of opening up meridians is also much faster. Moreover, this cheat can enhance Su Fan's understanding of mind techniques. In just half a year, he has fully mastered the first layer of mind techniques. The systematic analysis of internal power cultivation and scientific cultivation is also one of the reasons for improving Su Fan's cultivation speed, not just relying on cheating. Su Fan is smarter than many people in this regard, he won't just rely on cheats. Even without any cheats, relying solely on his understanding, he believes that his cultivation speed will not be slow. Unfortunately, he won't take out the organization of this cultivation, at least temporarily. It can only be hidden in his heart. Nourishing spirit soup, I wonder if there is anything similar to it in the Huashan sect, even a pill that increases internal power. Should the Huashan sect also have it? Shaolin has De Huan Dan and Xiao Huan Dan, but Su Fan doesn't believe that the Huashan sect doesn't. So it's better to enter the inner door as soon as possible. Only by entering the inner door can we learn more. Su Fan looked at the window and secretly decided that in the first big competition, he would enter the inner door. The earlier he entered, the more advantageous it would be for him. Because he never forgot that there was an unprecedented disaster in the Huashan sect, which was the sword chi battle. The sword chi battle swept through both the inner and outer gates, with thousands of people and less than 100 surviving. Su Fan doesn't want to be a sacrifice. The best way is to prevent this disaster. Of course, it is difficult, even if he becomes a first class, it is also difficult to prevent. He is not sure why the sword-chi battle occurred. Just a few ideas, they will fight each other, that's just a joke. So the best way is to hide. As long as he is not in the Huashan sect during the battle, it's okay. When it's over, come back and there's no danger. But this is also difficult because he doesn't know when it will happen. He cannot stay outside all the time, and there are rules for disciples of the Huashan sect to go out. Therefore, Su Fan doesn't have any good way, but quickly entering the inner door to improve his strength is the best response. As for the future, he can only take one step at a time. Perhaps due to his arrival, the sword energy struggle may have disappeared. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Nourishing Shen Tang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Nourishing Shen Tang. On that day, Su Fan was practicing basic swordsmanship. Suddenly, not far away, Su Fan, who was usually responsible for teaching them Huashan swordsmanship, was approached by an external senior brother. Thank you very much, senior brother. Upon hearing this, Su Fan knew that he had responded by asking someone to bring a letter home earlier. The person who came is Yang Xing. Young butler Yang Xing, the head of the family, saw Su Fan with a smile on his face. He was genuinely happy to see that Su Fan was even stronger than a year ago. Although he couldn't help but hesitate about his main family going to Huashan to practice martial arts, after all, the Su family has been studying literature for 3 generations, and the worst old masters are all scholars. Moreover, Su Fan's father and ancestors were both Juren. The Huashan sect is a martial arts sect, and the people in the martial arts world are considered very dangerous by Yang Xing. The Su family has been passed down for 3 generations, so he naturally does not want Su Fan to be in any danger. Just before, the heads of the Su family were not in good health. Su Fan, who was practicing martial arts, now looks extremely strong, which also gives him some comfort. Yang, you saw my previous letter. How is your family now? It has been a year since Su Fan went up the mountain, and because of his new disciples, he cannot go down the mountain, so Su Fan naturally cannot understand the situation at home. Moreover, it is generally difficult for outsiders to enter the mountains. For the Su family, Su Fan can only rely on letters and has a rough understanding, not a comprehensive understanding. Fortunately, the Huashan sect is not ungrateful either. At least every year, new disciples and their families are invited to visit. Now that Yang Xing has arrived, Su Fan naturally pulled him to the place where he usually practices martial arts in Luoyan Valley. This place is about 4 or 5 miles away from the other courtyard of Luoyan Peak, separated by a forest in the middle, and next to it is a deep pond named Sun Moon Lake by Su Fan. Su Fan doesn't like to practice martial arts with everyone and prefers quietness. He found such a place to practice, but because he has always performed well and there is no danger here, the person in charge of the outer gate did not stop him. Young butler, can you tell me how things are at home now? Tell me everything. Pulling Yang Xing to a shining stone next to Sun Moon Lake, Su Fan asked directly. Master, during the previous autumn harvest, my family collected over 8,300 stones of grain from 3,000 acres of land. Among them, 100 tenant households' 2,500 acres of grain amounted to 6,000 stones, and they paid 1,800 stones. In addition to their 500 acres of good farmland, there were a total of 4,000 stones. Apart from the taxes paid, there were 2,200 stones left. A year's grain of over 2,000 stones is only about 2,000 taels of silver, of which some needs to be managed, leaving only over 1,000. Compared to his cheap father before his death, he only had 100 or 200 taels of silver. If it weren't for this tax, it would indeed leave a lot behind. However, even so, it is already quite good. In Huayin County, relying solely on land, there is not much income of 2,000 taels of silver per year. There are no major landlords in Huayin County, and the Su family is already considered a major landlord. 2,200 stones, next year there will be about 2,500 stones left, but it's also the end. Su Fan nodded and used the scientific methods of later generations to cultivate, which indeed yielded a great harvest. In previous years, the Sujia family had 3,000 acres, and it was already very good to have 6,000 stones. Now there's a sudden surge of over 2,000 stones, which is really good. But this has almost reached its peak. Su Fan is not the sage of later generations and cannot improve grain cultivation, so the yield per mu can only increase in this way. Moreover, Su Fan knew that during the Little Ice Age period of the Ming dynasty, the yield per mu would only decrease in the future. As for whether this martial arts world is on the same level as history, Su Fan is not sure. Fortunately, Su Fan did not expect Tianli to bring him much wealth. What he really cares about is the family's business. How are Bai Wei fresh and braised flavor Xiaojia doing? Bai Weixian is naturally the Su family restaurant, which has been renamed. After all, the name of the Su family restaurant is not pleasant. Master, this year, Bai Weixian and braised Xiaojia have been extremely popular. Bai Weixian has now opened 3 branches, and braised Xiaojia has opened up a situation in 6 county towns. Due to concerns about a shortage of manpower, we have not expanded further for the time being. However, even so, the total monthly net profit adds up to 500 taels of silver. Speaking of this, Yang Xing is also really excited. He has earned thousands of taels of income this year, which can be said to be quite significant in Xi'an Prefecture. After all, the Su family is not an old established merchant. They can earn thousands of taels of silver per year, which is definitely very impressive. Naturally, now the Su family is very convinced of Su Fan, this young master. Plus the ones in Tianli, there's about 6,000 or 7,000 taels of silver, Su Fan nodded. This income is definitely among the top in Huayin County. After all, the north is not the south, and there are not many people doing business, unless they are engaged in smuggling. 7,000 taels of silver per year is naturally enough for Su Fan now. According to the path he has prepared for the Krypton gold cultivation, it is only a few hundred taels of silver per year. It is not something he does not want to eat well, because his current cultivation level cannot consume too much. Like their newly recruited disciples, they only need a few dozen taels a year, and it is already good for Su Fan to exceed 10 times. Of course, the annual consumption of the Huashan sect is estimated to be over 100,000 taels of silver. The higher the cultivation level, the more they consume. But what is needed now is not much, but it doesn't mean that Su Fan is satisfied. Young butler, the Su family's annual income is relatively good for the time being, but it will not be enough in the future. Therefore, the small families of Bai Wei fresh and braised flavor still need to expand. There is not enough manpower, so hurry up and cultivate them. Also, after you go back, tell Lu Tong to continue recruiting, focus on training, expand the small families of Bai Wei fresh and braised flavor, and the money earned will definitely be coveted by others in the future. You don't have to worry about the government's management, but other people may not necessarily be interested. So we still need General Lu to protect us then. Su Fan is very clear that after making money from Bai Weixian and braised small families, they will definitely be coveted. In this world, it is normal for them to seize and seize, so the Su family must have strength. On the official side, the Su family is not worried. After he traveled across the country, he would take out 1/3 every year to manage, so he is not afraid. But some of his peers, Su Fan, were very aware that in this era, those gentry merchants, and even the outlaws were not so friendly. Also, last time I asked you to go to Xi'an Prefecture and purchase the formula for Dr. Lin's nourishing soup, how did it go? Master, I have taken the recipe for the nourishing soup and spent 800 taels of silver, said Yang Xing with a hint of tenderness on his face. If it weren't for Su Fan's constant urging, he felt that the price could still be lowered. And spending so much money to buy such a formula, he really feels heartbroken. After all, this nourishing soup is of little use to most people. Got it, great. For Su Fan, he doesn't care at all about 800 taels. Even if 800 taels is 8,000 taels, he doesn't care. He only needs this recipe, so that in the future, his cheats can last for half an hour. You should know that in the past year, his internal skill cultivation has not been slow, he has already connected 3 meridians, and the Huashan heart method has also reached the 2nd level. The speed is quite fast, and half of the credit goes to this cheat. With the nourishment soup, his cheating will last half an hour, and his cultivation speed will also be 1/3 faster. How can this not make him happy? Chamberlain Yang, you need to collect a large number of medicinal materials for cultivating the spirit nourishing soup in the future, and then send someone to send them, together with tonic diet. It has been 3 months since the tonic diet was delivered. 3 months ago, Su Fan was no longer eating in the canteen with those entry-level disciples. It's about opening a small kitchen on their own. This kind of thing is nothing in Huashan sect. The inner disciples don't have a big pot of rice. The outer disciples, some good families, also provide their own disciples with the best food tonic diet early, hoping that they can cultivate better so that they can enter the inner door. Once you enter the inner gate, it's really like a fish leaping over a dragon's gate. Yes, Master Yang Xing naturally had no objection to Su Fan's request. Anyway, the Su family's annual income greatly increased, and everything in the Su family belonged to Su Fan. As a butler, he had no right to stop it. Later, Su Fan asked again about the breeding of domestic animals, especially poultry, which is also an industry that Su Fan is preparing for in the future. I heard it was pretty good, and Su Fan nodded in satisfaction. Then he gave some orders again, and after having a meal with Yang Xing, he dismissed the former and left. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Big Comparison of Outer Doors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Big Comparison of Outer Doors. Jinwu rises with a purple tail, soaring across the sky. By the side of Luoyan Valley in Sun Moon Lake, a few peach blossoms appear even more tender under the shining red sun, with human faces and peach blossoms reflecting red. Junior Brother Su. On the other side of the Sun Moon Lake, on a wooden roof, a young man meditated and breathed in the sunrise purple energy. Although it had always been futile, it did not hinder his cultivation. Upon realizing the purple energy of the morning sun, every time Su Fan practiced martial arts, he felt a sense of refreshing essence and spirit, which may be his subjective feeling. Opening his eyes, he leaped lightly and landed on the big stone by Tan Bien. He looked at his senior brother jumping from afar and replied, "Senior Brother Wu, why are you free to come to my place today? You kid, have you forgotten the time for cultivation? Today is the annual external competition." Wu Yu said angrily. Upon hearing this, Su Fan was also surprised. He had indeed forgotten the time, so he awkwardly smiled and touched the back of his head. "I didn't expect time to pass so quickly," he said. "The time for mountain cultivation is unknown. In the blink of an eye, he has been in the Huashan sect for 3 years. He has moved here since last year. There are many and complex people in the Luoyan Valley, and Su Fan's soul is stronger than ordinary people due to 2 lifetimes. With the blessing of external factors, his daily time for practicing internal meditation alone is more than twice that of ordinary people. Therefore, in order not to be discovered, he still chose the side of Sun Moon Lake, as there is no danger here. For 3 years, he has now stood by Wu Yu's side, even taller than Wu Yu. With a height of over 1.8 meters, from his appearance, he doesn't look like a 14-year-old boy no matter what. For the past 3 years, he has been diligently practicing the 5 animal plays, which have greatly helped his muscles and bones. Just in terms of physical fitness, Su Fan is stronger than many young people in their 20s. That's precisely why Su Fan has never given up practicing the 5 animal play. He has never underestimated his physical fitness, and his internal strength is breaking through the first class level. He cannot achieve detachment, and his power is actually not significant. At most, internal power is to enhance the explosive power of the warrior, and the warrior's combat depends more on whether the moves are exquisite or not, as well as their proficiency in martial arts. Of course, even second-rate martial artists sometimes struggle with internal strength, but this situation is very dangerous. In this way, the stronger the physical fitness, the naturally beneficial it is for enhancing combat effectiveness. This was not only discovered by Su Fan, but also by various sects and sects who have the art of forging bodies, and even many external skills are considered as forging bodies. They are only disciples of major sects, and their cultivation time is not enough. How can they still have time to polish their physical bodies? Moreover, polishing the physical body consumes more resources, which only Su Fan, a person who has connections and wealth, can achieve, and also has perseverance. It's going to be very fast. This year, there will be a big competition in the outer sect. It's estimated that you can get the top spot in this competition. You can try to challenge the senior brothers in the next year, which can enhance your potential. It's very likely that you will be recognized by the elders of the inner sect and earn income in the inner sect. Will you kindly reminded that he has now become a disciple of the inner sect, and his internal skills have opened up the ninth orthodoxy, which is considered excellent among many inner sect disciples. And over the past 3 years, he has been very familiar with this senior brother in front of him. He is young and mature, extremely disciplined, with good family conditions and good talent. In 3 years, the Huashan heart technique has been cultivated to the second level. The talent for internal skill cultivation alone is definitely at the top level among the 3 generations of external disciples. However, in reality, he was not aware that Su Fan had already begun to establish the 5th orthodoxy. Once he established the Huashan mind technique, he would reach the 3rd level, which is definitely rare in the history of the Huashan sect. For Wu Yu's suggestion, Su Fan smiled and thanked him. His current strength is not inferior to those disciples who have been in the sect for 6 years, so he is very confident. This time, there will be no problem entering the inner sect during the external competition. Thank you, Senior Brother Wu. Since the competition is about to start, let's go outside. It's not good if we're late. You also know that. Wu Yu nodded in the air and then nodded. The two quickly exerted their body movements and headed towards the Jade Maiden Peak. When the two of them arrived at the Jade Maiden Peak, a crowd had already surged in the central training ground. Apart from the 3 sessions of outer disciples who participated in the outer sect competition, many elders of the inner sect of the Huashan sect, as well as some inner sect disciples and outer sect deacons, had already arrived. Su Fan and Wu Yu said a word and came to their group of external disciples, but his stature stood out among that group of people. Just as Su Fan and others began to draw numbers and prepare for the martial arts competition, a group of senior elders from the Huashan sect smiled at each other and commented on the 3 generations of disciples below. Who is that tallest kid? How old is he? He's actually a newcomer. The first thing that everyone was curious about was the tallest Su Fan. Haha. I know this kid, his name is Su Fan. He was born with strong muscles and bones. On the day he started, I personally touched his bones, and his bones were average. However, his muscles and bones were very strong. 3 years ago, he was 11 years old, and I couldn't believe that in 3 years, this kid had grown so tall. Xiong Qingyuan grinned wide. At the age of 14, I'm already so tall. Even a young man of 20 can be said to be strong, but his body is indeed strong. Brother Xiong is very similar to you, and you personally started the journey by feeling your bones. It seems that I have a connection with you. If I perform well this time, I will prepare to accept my apprenticeship. Headmaster Ning Qingyu touched his beard and smiled as he looked at Xiong Qingyuan. Many inner sects have grown up with disciples, and now there are only 2 elders of the Huashan sect who have not accepted disciples. One is Feng Qingyang, the genius disciple of the Sword sect, and the other is Xiong Qingyuan, who is the least like a Huashan disciple in their Qi sect. Due to her grade and personality, Feng Qingyang has not yet accepted her apprenticeship. Xiong Qingyuan is already 50 years old, and the reason why he did not accept his apprenticeship is mainly because he did not have much interest in it. He was not from the direct lineage of the Huashan sect, but rather became a monk halfway through and joined the Huashan sect. Later, he made contributions and became an elder of the Huashan sect. Ning Qingyu actually hoped that he would accept his apprenticeship, not only because of his own body refining skills, but also because he had reached the 8th level of his cultivation of the Huashan sect's Hunyuan Gong. His overall strength was among the top in the first class, and even in the 8 extraordinary meridians, he had opened up 3 meridians. Unfortunately, it was too dangerous and difficult for Rendu to open up the 2 meridians. However, Xiong Qingyuan is not of high grade and still has the possibility of breaking through. He holds a considerable position in the Huashan sect and is ranked among the top 20 elders in terms of strength. Haha. Senior brother in charge is right. I like this kid, and according to Wu Yu, he has a natural talent for internal skills, a strong character, and extreme self-discipline. In recent years, I have finally come across such a little guy who caters to my old bear's taste. When the time comes, don't compete with me. Xiong Qingyuan has always been interested in Su Fan. After all, that little guy's physical talent was not bad back then. He always wanted to find a successor for the forging method passed down in his family. Hee. Unexpectedly, Brother Xiong, you already had plans. It seems that this person really has a good eye on Brother Xiong. An elder of the Qi sect next to him laughed and said, then, junior brother, I wish you a good disciple. The other elders also congratulated upon hearing this, even the elders of the Sword sect. Although Xiong Qingyuan is not from the direct lineage of the Huashan sect, they have been in close contact over the years and everyone knows each other equally. They are also happy to know that Xiong Qingyuan is preparing to accept his apprenticeship. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Unique Understanding of Swordsmanship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Unique Understanding of Swordsmanship. A group of elders from the Huashan sect accompanied the sect leader to communicate quietly above, while below were 3 generations of disciples from the outer sect, opening the outer sect competition. The competition of nearly 200 people is naturally a draw, an outdoor competition, divided into 3 stages in total. The first stage is the knockout stage of the group, the second stage is the final, and the best one is a challenge. There are 3 sessions of external disciples, and you can challenge them freely, even if you have confidence, you can challenge internal disciples. The best battle is actually a time to showcase external disciples. In the first stage of the knockout stage, Su Fan, a 3rd grade student, was drawn against a boy named Jingming, who was 11 years old and had only Su Fan's chin height. The 2 of them entered the arena and exchanged a sword-hugging salute with each other. Jingming Dao said, Senior brother Su, please. Junior brother, you should take action first. Su Fan shook his head, but Jingming did not refuse. The disciples of the same generation naturally knew Su Fan's strength. With a Huashan sword technique, the white clouds emerged from the mountain and quickly pointed at Su Fan with a wooden sword in hand. Seeing this, Su Fan's eyes remained motionless, his left foot slightly shifted, and his right hand was noticeably larger than the large wooden sword of many outer disciples in the Huashan style. With a gentle lift, he simply flipped up the basic sword move and gave the opponent's sword move to the present moment. Then there was also a sudden surge, as fast as lightning, reaching the opponent's throat. This momentary change made Jingming not even feel it, and he was defeated. Su Fanqing. The judge in charge of the outer gate next to him saw this and gave Su Fan a deep glance before speaking up. Jingmingla's face was full of frustration, and she didn't expect this outdoor competition to end like this. Regarding this, Su Fan remained unchanged, bowed with his sword, and then walked off the arena. This time, he needs to perform well in order to quickly enter the inner goal. Only by entering the inner goal can he improve his strength more quickly. As for the external disciples of the same generation, he really didn't pay attention to it. He only focused on his internal power cultivation, and he can even compare to those of the 6th or even 9th year classes. After all, he has practiced the Huashan heart method to the 2nd level, and has also mastered the 4 points of the 12 orthodox scriptures. Now he is preparing for the 5th point. Although not reaching the top level, martial artists cannot achieve the ability to release their internal power externally. With the help of internal power, their speed and strength can be increased. Su Fan's physical fitness far exceeds that of these external disciples, let alone sword techniques and so on. Having a cheat, Su Fan cultivates the Huashan sword technique, not only compared to the elders of the inner sect, but also a disciple of more than 9 years, which is very rare compared to him. Moreover, as a person of 2 lifetimes, many online understandings from his past life may not necessarily be correct, but some attempts and cheats have taken him to a new level of understanding of swordsmanship. At the same time, emphasizing the foundation makes him stand out in Huashan swordsmanship, without any experience against enemies. However, when dealing with these novices, he only needs basic swordsmanship skills. To be honest, Su Fan has been trying to practice martial arts, especially swordsmanship, in the past 2 years. In his past life, he has read many novels, especially in martial arts novels. Whether it's Jin Yong or Huang-style martial arts, there are many powerful characters among swordsmen, such as the Yu girl in Jin Yong, the sword demon Du Guqiu defeat, and Shimen Chui Xue and Yi Guqing in Lu Xiaofeng. Among them, Su Fan is the most recognized for Shimen Chui Xue's swordsmanship philosophy. Although he cannot achieve Shimen Chui Xue's extreme emotions and swordsmanship, Shimen Chui Xue's swordsmanship practice, Su Fan also recognized and tried. The swordsmanship of Shimen Chui Xue in the Huang style does not seem to be advanced, but his ability to become a sword god indicates that swordsmanship is not necessarily more advanced and powerful. Basic swordsmanship can also lead to dominance in the opponent's hands. Shimen Chui Xue's swordsmanship is a killing sword, and when the sword is used, it will be stained with blood. Lu Xiaofeng commented that Shimen Chui Xue's sword is very cold and fast, so fast that it is difficult to pick it up. Therefore, Su Fan has been practicing swordsmanship for the past 2 years, especially basic swordsmanship. Sword skills are fast, and through continuous training for 2 years, Su Fan's swordsmanship is also extremely fast. Basic swordsmanship, such as chopping, breaking, teasing, blocking, washing, cutting, stabbing, stirring, pressing, hanging, and cloud, have already been practiced to the bone marrow by him. It's just the simplest sword move that comes easily, and in that extremely fast move, its power is also extraordinary. Of course, perhaps for experts, he is still very immature now, but dealing with these equally immature external disciples is different. In one day, Su Fan fought 3 disciples of the same class in a row, and none of them could catch his 3 moves. This also caught the attention of the elders above, especially the elders of the sword sect, who looked at Su Fan with bright eyes. In their words, they were simply born to practice swordsmanship. For this reason, they even began to discuss with Xiong Qingyuan. Impossible, junior brother, I finally found a seedling, no matter what, I won't let it go. Xiong Qingyuan shook his head and refused to accept any temptation from the elders of the sword sect. Joking, he was even more surprised to know Su Fan's cultivation level of internal strength. In just 3 years, he had reached the 2nd level of Huashan heart technique. This day, he was considered top-notch among all generations of Huashan disciples. More importantly, Su Fan's body was very similar to him, and there was absolutely no problem with practicing external body refining methods. With such a good inheritor, how could he let go? The outdoor competition lasted for a total of 3 days. Su Fan's performance is getting better and better. On the last day of the challenge, Su Fan directly challenged a 9-year-old senior brother and won the first battle. At this point, he achieved a great victory in the external competition. The end of the competition is naturally a matter of promotion to the inner door. In this competition, there were only 8 external disciples selected to enter the inner gate, including 4 in the 9th year, 2 in the 6th year, and 2 in the 3rd year. Sufan is naturally included and quite popular. Both Sword sect and Qi sect want to take Sufan as their disciple, however, in the end, Su Fan was still taken by Xiong Qingyuan. Xiong Qingyuan himself holds a high position among the elders and has extremely strong strength. In addition, he has never taken any apprentices. Sufan, you and Xiong Duo will live here with me from now on. After the big competition, Xiong Qingyuan returned to his place with Su Fan in the envious eyes of a group of elders. Xiong Qingyuan lives in a half-waste area on the west side of Lianhua Peak. There are several side rooms here, and the entrance is decorated with several pear trees, which is not so spacious. I know you like someone. That courtyard to the west is for you. When he arrived at his residence, Xiong Qingyuan pointed to the western part of several courtyards and said with a smile. Thank you very much, master. Being accepted as an apprentice by Xiong Qingyuan, Su Fan was quite happy. From the mouths of those senior brothers, Su Fan also learned about the situation of some inner sect elders. In terms of status and strength, the Xiong elder in front of him is among the top in the Huashan sect. With this background, he will also establish a firm foothold in the Huashan sect in the future, and the next step is to work hard to cultivate. You stay for a few days, and I will personally teach you martial arts. Duo is also my own nephew. From now on, as a senior brother, you should take good care of him. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Internal Mind Techniques. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Internal Mind Techniques. A few days later, Su Fan and others were officially arranged to become inner disciples of the Huashan sect and also included in the roster of the Huashan sect. At this point, Su Fan is the true disciple of the Huashan sect. Even after death, the tablet can still be enshrined in the Huashan sect ancestral hall. In the past few days, Su Fan has also gained a detailed understanding of the strength of the Huashan sect. After all, his master Xiong Qingyuan is an elder of the inner sect and also an elder who exercises similar law enforcement powers, with great power. His status is naturally not inferior among the disciples of the inner sect. So, it is still easy to understand the detailed situation of the Huashan sect. Firstly, including the elders, there are about 100 disciples in the inner sect, of which there are a total of 20.8 elders, all of whom are top-notch experts in the martial arts world. It has to be said that the Huashan sect at this time is truly at its peak. It is estimated that even when Hao Datong founded the sect, he did not have such power. In the late Yuan dynasty, the Huashan sect was ranked among the 6 major sects, but it was truly incomparable to Wudang and Shaolin, and even inferior to those of Amei and Kongtong. However, the current Huashan sect, as the leader of the 5 sacred sword sect, commands the 5 sacred mountains and has almost the same strength as Shaolin Wudang. Combined with the strength of the 5 sacred mountains, a first-class martial arts expert is estimated to reach half a hundred. No wonder Shaolin is so wary of the Huashan sect, even willing to plot against it. The deeper his understanding of the Huashan sect, the more Su Fan had some thoughts on the sword energy struggle of the Huashan sect. According to the development of the Huashan faction at this time, it is probably not a problem to break out of the Shangxi border and rush towards the Central Plains. And according to his observation, although there are signs of opposition between the Sword sect and the Qi sect, it seems that there is no such thing among the elders. So why will the Huashan school suddenly undergo significant changes in the next 10 or 20 years? This is also a question that Su Fan has been pondering. If this danger is not resolved, it will still have a great impact on him in the future. Yu Buchuan has already seen it, and he is now in his 20s. He is Ning Qingyu's disciple, and of course, among the disciples in charge, he is one of the most transparent. According to the timeline of Xiaoao world, the battle for sword energy is only about a decade away. Once it really happens, let alone whether he can escape this calamity. Even if he does, the Huashan sect will become a third-rate force just like before. This is definitely not what Su Fan wants. He joined the Huashan sect not only because of its martial arts, but also because he values his powerful power as his support, allowing him to cultivate with peace of mind. Reviving his life, Su Fan naturally hopes to see the pinnacle of martial arts and yearns for the innate realm. From some classic books of the Huashan sect, he found some records of innate realm. Not to mention his strength, martial artists in the innate realm seem to have a long life. In the late Yuan dynasty, the Sanfeng immortal of Wudong was the last innate martial artist in the martial arts world, and he seemed to have lived for more than 150 years, even 3 generations. It's impossible to live forever, but who wouldn't want to live long? If the Huashan sect had gone through the sword chi battle and suddenly became the bird like it was later, Su Fan naturally wouldn't want it. With him, he believed it wouldn't have become the Huashan sect like Yubuchuan. But that way, he needs to put in a lot of effort to pull the Huashan faction. If one can cultivate with peace of mind and peace of mind, who would be willing to put in effort? In the world of pride, Yubuchuan has been practicing for decades, but he is only top-notch. This may be due to the distraction of the Huashan sect. Su Fan is not willing, so in order to cultivate with peace of mind, it is best to avoid the sword energy conflict of the Huashan sect. But how did the sword energy conflict happen? Su Fan has always been at a loss. According to the current Huashan sect, although the disciples below have some conflicting intentions. However, in Su Fan's eyes, he felt that this was intentional by those high-level officials, just to motivate these disciples. Only with competition can there be progress, right? Is it difficult because those elders let go too far and had lower-level disciples, ultimately affecting the higher-ups? That's not right either. These elders have been immortal for decades, how could they not see it? Su Fan quickly shook his head. Hey! What's going on? How did Shaolin trigger the sword chi battle of the Huashan sect? Su Fan always believed that the sword energy struggle of the Huashan sect was caused by external factors, and although there was a bit of power struggle internally, it remained within the bottom line. Forget it, let's forget about it for now. There's still time, let's hurry up and practice now. Otherwise, even if one discovers something, with their current status, they cannot influence it at all. Unless one can cultivate to the top level and then have their own chief master, it may also affect the entire Huashan sect. So there's not much time left for me now, only 10 years. 10 years requires me to cultivate to the top level, which is not easy. The Huashan sect has been established for 300 to 400 years, and there are recorded tens of thousands of disciples under the sect. Excluding the previous dynasty, even today, it takes 15 years for the fastest practicing disciple to reach the top level. And this is the sword saint of the Huashan sect, who is still under pressure from Su Fan. Of course, he has more motivation because he has a problem. But once you enter the inner gate, you can choose a new internal mental skill. Which one should you choose? Su Fan thought about it and realized that this would determine his future. The current Huashan sect is not the proud Huashan sect in later generations, as many martial arts skills are lacking. Although the 9 Huashan skills are well known in later generations. But now, many martial arts skills are not inferior to Huashan Jiugong. In terms of internal mental skills alone, there are quite a few. Those second and third-rate individuals have almost no disciples to cultivate, and most of those skills come from outside martial arts practitioners. The Huashan sect has many deep and profound mental techniques, and the basic, Huashan internal skill, is what Su Fan is currently practicing. It is passed down from the Chuanjin sect's Chuanjin Dharma, Chuanjin de Dao Gu. Although it may not be comparable, it is definitely not inferior. With 10 layers of internal skills and complete cultivation, it can be unparalleled in the martial arts world, only under innate circumstances. However, it is difficult to cultivate this mental technique to perfection, and almost no one can achieve it. Other techniques such as Han Yuan Gong, Bao Yuan Jin, Chaoyang Gong, and Zi Xia Shen Gong are all top-notch Huashan mental techniques. Especially the Purple Cloud Divine Skill, which is an internal skill of the sect head and cannot be practiced by non-sect heirs. The other three mental techniques are also well known in the martial arts world, and most inner sect elders practice these internal skills. So if Su Fan chooses to switch to cultivating internal skills in the future, he will also choose from these three schools. His master Xiong Qingyuan's Hunyuan Gong, along with Hunyuan Palm, combined with his external body refining techniques, is known as the sky-covering hand in the martial arts world, and the name is quite domineering. Of course, this was also what he achieved. 10 years ago, his master fought alone against 3 of the top 10 elders of the demon cult, and was able to escape unscathed. You should know that among the top 10 elders of the demon cult, their strength should be at a high or even top level among the top tier. There are 2 of them, both of whom are top-notch and top-notch. Otherwise, how could one sect suppress the martial arts world? From this, it can be seen that his master is powerful, and at the same time, this Hunyuan Gong is also very impressive. Hunyuan Gong has a strong and powerful internal power, and when it is completed, it is even more invincible when the power drives vomiting. The elders of the Huashan sect all choose this technique. Although cultivation is not fast, the combination of internal and external elements often makes it more powerful, with a mixed element like unity. End of this chapter.